Hello everybody and welcome to Sin City Living. My name is Jason. I'm bringing you today's episode. As always, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. We have a ton of content coming out every single day. Don't want you guys to miss a thing. Our usual shout out of appreciation to our patrons. All those tips and support are only going to go towards making the channel better. We're really excited to be able to continue expanding the channel and adding more stuff to it. So if you're curious about it, go ahead and check the description down below this video. Be more than happy to get more and more appreciation and help from you guys, but no pressure. We appreciate you guys just tuning in and watching. That's more than enough for us. We do hope the patrons are appreciating the exclusive videos we put out for you guys every single week. If you have any suggestions or anything you'd like to see, go ahead and email us on that site. For everybody else, just email us at sincityliving.lv@gmail.com for anything that you would like to see or any questions you may have. It could be Vegas, casino, craps, blackjack, baccarat, paga, anything at all. Just email it to us. We love shooting those videos for you guys. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and get into tonight's History of Vegas episode. Every Thursday at 7 o'clock, we will do a show based around the history of Vegas. We also have our Tuesday 7 o'clock show, The Darker Side of Las Vegas, which is true crime. True crime, solved, unsolved, serial killers, anything we can find related to Vegas that you guys might find interesting that expands out a little bit from just gambling. So as promised in the last few episodes, I'm going to touch on the mob side of Vegas this time around. The last couple episodes dealt with some of the more famous and successful cheaters here in Las Vegas. So now I'm going to go back to the roots. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I had to do some research on this stuff. I don't have this stuff memorized. My wife is actually a walking encyclopedia on the mob. So if you guys are interested in us possibly doing a show just related to the mob from Vegas and expanding out, please email us or let us know in the comments, and I'll see if I can't talk my lovely wife into go ahead and shooting a show of her own here on the channel. And if not, here we go. So the very beginnings of the mob in Las Vegas. Now, Las Vegas started out, we're in the desert. In case you guys didn't know, we're in the desert. There's not a whole lot out here. It's dust and dirt. So back in the day, that's pretty much what it was, dust and dirt, and was just starting to catch on. Now back in the 30s, they had just legalized gambling, and they were starting to legalize a few other things, so things were really starting to take off, but with a twist. I guess that's probably where the genesis of the what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas kind of thing, because back then it wasn't just the gambling that got legalized, but they also changed some of the requirements as far as marriages and divorces may go. So Vegas was rapidly becoming known as the place to go to gamble, to drink, to party, to have fun, to get married, to get divorced, all of that stuff. So it was already starting to get known as Sin City. Now, a lot of people consider the Flamingo to be the beginnings of the mob-influenced era of Las Vegas that went for a very, very, very long time. However, it wasn't actually the Flamingo that was the first. The Flamingo opened in 1945. In 1941, the El Cortez came about. The El Cortez started out as just a small little local place, like everything was back then. Now, the El Cortez was around for a long time. The Flamingo was still around, but the El Cortez was around for quite some time, and that was the beginning. Now, the best way to track things with the El Cortez as far as who influenced it and who was an owner generally involves going with the property records. And according to the property records, there were multiple sales and things going on, but Most Sedway pops up a lot. Now, he had a lot of mob ties, primarily to Meyer Lansky and Bugsy Siegel, two names that anybody who's even remotely interested in the mob will recognize. Now, there was also a local underworld figure known as Gus Greenbaum. And he shows up on a couple of these property records, which is interesting because he is typically very low-key back then. In fact, he never pops up again in relation to the El Cortez. But he does pop up at one point on a deed of sale, I believe it was. And there were a few others that were involved with it, but Gus Greenbaum was, of course, the most well-known. Edward Berman, who was I want to say a Chicago mobster that had relocated out to Las Vegas. But Meyer Lansky and he was in Minnesota, mobster, that crime figure that relocated out to Las Vegas. That's who Edward Berman was. But Meyer Lansky and Bugsy Siegel were two of the most well known. Now at the ownership change where Gus Greenbaum shows up, it's listed as and associates. It's pretty well guessed that those associates were probably Meyer Lansky and Bugsy Siegel, but there's really no way to know. Now the Cortez kind of got sold a few more times here and there throughout history, and really wasn't exactly like a hotbed of the mob or a hot spot of the mob as much as the Flamingo. And the Flamingo was kind of where some of this mystique around the mob comes into play, mostly because of some of the more well-known, internationally known and prominent mobsters that were involved, what occurred during and after, and what happened to those guys. So this is a good starting point to how the mob kind of put its foot into Las Vegas, kind of dipped its toe into the pool. So Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky had been involved with a lot of casino work in Cuba. So they were very, very passionate about casinos as a potential moneymaker, as just ways to just print cash. And Vegas was definitely showing up on their radar as a spot they could do it here locally. So they wanted to get involved here in Vegas. So what they did was, what Bugsy Siegel did was he came to town and he bought a he bought a small little nightclub, just a little nightclub, doesn't even have a name for it. Just bought a small little nightclub and sold it shortly thereafter and reinvested that money into a Nevada project corporation. Basically, he was just trying to parlay this money up into being able to do a casino, and that's what he did. He bought a small lot, he bought a good-sized lot and hired a building contractor to develop this vacant lot. And this is where things started, unfortunately, to go just a little bit sideways for Bugsy Siegel. He had a lot of money that was invested in this, a lot of mob money invested in this, a lot of mob partners, but he had a lot of trust at the time because of his successes in Cuba and his prior successes as a mobster as well. He was very, very well known. But the construction for the Flamingo turned out to be extremely problematic. It continued to blow deadlines. The construction costs were just ballooning. And to give you an idea of how money worked back around that time versus modern times, now the El Cortez at one point was sold for somewhere around $700,000-$800,000, right? Now, of course, it's smaller than some of these mega casinos that are going up around here. But nowadays, these mega casinos are selling for $1 to $4 billion. Even something as small as the El Cortez is probably $100 million property, and it was $800,000 back then. All right, so think of that as I talk about some of these ballooning costs. So with the Flamingo, the costs continue to go up. Now Bugsy Siegel kept telling them, hey, it's nothing to worry about. We've got it under control. We've got it. We'll handle this. And even the contractors were starting to sweat. They were starting to get really, really, really nervous. And that's where a semi-famous line comes out from one of the mobsters talking to a contractor, telling him, hey, don't worry about it. We only kill each other. It's okay. As a way of reassuring this guy, because he knew it was mob connected. He knew all these guys were mobsters and were really running the town. So of course the contractors were scared as this is going on, and that's their way of reassuring them. Hey, don't worry about it. You're fine. We only kill each other. That's reassuring. Thanks, appreciate that. So everything is just kind of going sideways, and from other accounts I've read, basically what was happening, there was so much corruption going on here that supplies would be delivered to the lot in the morning and would be driving right back off the back of the lot an hour later and circling back around to get sold again to the Flamingo. So not only was there skim, there was all kinds of this corruption and circular money. You're spending money to buy these supplies that are looping back around, so you can spend money to buy these supplies again, to loop back around, to spend money. You guys see where this is going. So it was just getting more and more and more expensive, and nothing's happening. Like it's getting there, it's growing, but good God, how is this costing so much? And at one point, the cost ballooned to $6 million. Now, again, keep in mind that back then, less than $1 million was buying a property that'd probably be worth $50 to $100 million nowadays. So 6 million is probably the equivalent to nowadays money of $750 million. I mean, this was getting stupid expensive. And the other mob investors were starting to notice, and we're looking around and we're going, well, wait a minute, you know, Bugsy's girlfriend sure is taking a whole lot of flights to the Bahamas and just out of town. You know, what is going on here? You know, where's all this money going? I'm sorry, it's taking a lot of flights to Zurich. I don't know where the Bahamas came from, but was going to Europe all the time. So they realized that Bugsy is probably skimming money and funneling it to some other spot for himself. So the mobsters started to crack the whip, and they demanded their money back. They said, look, you know, we've given you this money, nothing's happening, where's our freaking money? Bugsy Siegel was in trouble. He was screwed, and he knew it. He only had one hope, and his hope was, if I can get this open, this should be a license to print money, and I should make more than enough money to be able to pay these guys back. I just need to get this thing open. So he did. So he got it finished, got it opened, and it bombed. And it bombed, and he was screwed. Now, he made a tactical error for the time. And that's that he opened it in the week between Christmas and New Year's, which for Vegas back then was a dead time. It was a dead period. That was the crickets and tumbleweeds rolling through town. Nowadays, that would be a brilliant move. That is an extremely busy time because we are very much a holiday destination, especially New Year's. But back then, not so much. So it bombed. He didn't make any of the money he thought he was going to make, and he was done. Less than 6 months later, Bugsy Siegel was murdered. Now, once he was murdered, the casino was taken over, the Flamingo was taken over by the mob, and they installed new management. Now, from that point on, within months, the Flamingo was making money hand over fist. They were just raking it in. And they decided they wanted to copy this model, and they opened up multiple casinos, all operating under this particular model. And just had wild and great success with it. For any of you guys that have seen the movie Casino, some of the true story behind that is that the fictional Tangiers modeled after the Stardust, and in reality, he was actually running 4 casinos, not 1 casino, 4 casinos. The mob had so many casinos, they were just printing money hand over fist, and the mob influence made it all the way up into the 80s as far as controlling the casinos. And hopefully we'll be able to tell you guys a lot more about it as time goes on. In the 50s, the management group, including Meyer Lansky, ended up selling the Flamingo, and it just continued to change hands throughout the years. It still exists now. I believe it's a Caesars property, and of course it's nothing like it was back then. It was demolished. The original was demolished. When was that? 1994. 1994, the original Flamingo was just leveled. It was just demolished, and they rebuilt it up from there. And now it's just it's a huge mega resort, like many of the other mega resorts out there. It's not quite as cutting edge now as it used to be back then because of all the newer stuff that's popped up and the bigger, better things, the Bellagios, the Arias, the Cosmopolitans, stuff like that. But it is still here, and it is still big, and it is still a blast. It's just not mob controlled anymore. And that is the very beginnings of the mob story here in Vegas and the mob influence here in Vegas. And I hope you guys find this interesting. And again, like I said, if you guys would like to see my wife do a show just related entirely to the mob, I think we could manage to squeeze it into Sin City Living, since the mob had such a big influence in Vegas that it would semi-fit the theme. If you guys are interested, please email us, put it in the comments, let us know. Otherwise, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you very, very much for watching, and we will catch you guys next time. Bye now.